No, it depends on your quickest. We're going to actually just introduce Tony. I heard that Tim Newens did a bit of an introductory thing last night with a few would you rather questions. So I'm going to do the same. But
I always get worried about these sorts of questions.
Yeah. But I visited a website which was actually called the hardest would you rather questions to answer. So I made sure I picked the hardest.
I'm going to leave right now. Okay.
Okay, Tony, would you rather have no knees or no elbows?
No knees or no elbows. I think I'd rather have no knees.
All right.
Because knees get injured in sport.
Yeah. And
the older you get, the more your knees hurt. Whereas
your legs are straight all the time.
Yeah, I've never really heard of people getting sore elbows. So there you go.
Yeah.
So, no knees.
This one's a hard one. Would you rather have something in your eye or need to sneeze and never be able to for a whole year?
I think I'd loathe having something in my eye for a year.
So that's the constant walking around.
Yeah, let me sneeze for the whole year.
No, you can't sneeze.
I want to sneeze.
Yeah,
okay,
right. All right.
Is anyone else enjoying this?
This is actually really interesting. Reminds me of high school, actually. Would you rather always have something to say? Would you rather always have to say everything that's on your mind, or never speak again?
I would definitely not want to say what is on my mind. That would be number one and slightly embarrassing. People would hear what I really think, and only God wants to know that. Yeah, so
that's cool. That's my questions. Yeah, so everyone, this is Tony. It's going to bring us the word tonight. So thank you.
Can I just say a huge welcome as well from me. If you're here for the first year, this is my 11th year at GCS, can you believe? So thankfully, I'm not as nervous as you are, but it's great that you're here, and it's great that what we're about to do together is open God's Word. I've got a little question for you to have a chat with the person next to you before we start, and the question is, how certain can we be about Jesus? You've got 15 seconds to give a percentage to the person next to you. Okay? Is it 10%? Is it an 80%? How certain can we be about Jesus? What percentage would you give?
At least 100.
Okay, that'll do. All you had to do is give a percentage. So it raises all sorts of questions, doesn't it? Just asking that question. So some people in the room here will be going, can we be certain of anything? Okay, so some people will be asking that question, and other people will be asking questions like, how much do I need to know to be sufficiently certain about something? And other people might go, hey, you know what? I can know 100%. Okay, and so we're going to have a mixture. It raises a whole bunch of questions, which I'm not going to answer, by the way, right now. You can talk to me after if you'd like to about that. But this part of the Bible that we just read, it's only 4 verses. Here is a person writing about Jesus. And in the very first 4 verses, he tells us why he's writing and how he has gone about it. And it's a really important 4 verses for us to get our head around, because it's going to help us to understand how someone has put together a significant part of the Bible. And I think if you're a bit unfamiliar with the Bible, you may well be surprised. Okay, so I won't give away some of those surprises just yet. But it's really important to work out how certain we can be about Jesus, particularly because of the claims that Jesus makes. Okay, particularly we've got to be have some degree of certainty because of the claims. Jesus in many ways was very ordinary, can I put it that way? He had friends, he had a friend betray him, he loved people, when he saw religious hypocrisy, he got angry about it, he weeps when friends die. Many levels, Jesus is very ordinary. and just like us. But at another level, when we come to the Bible, we meet Jesus who is very different from us. And he actually claims to be God. And he can do things like heal hands. He can make someone who's paralyzed Yeah, that's our PhD student up there. Okay, righto, thank you. It's actually research. I want to start there, okay? Here's the first reason that Luke gives, one of the first reasons Luke gives as to why we have certainty about Jesus, and it's Luke's research. What does Luke claim about his research in verse 3? This is not a rhetorical question. Yes? Sorry, what was it?
Like, maybe uncertainty, something like some other people didn't tell, but he actually know by the people who witnessed.
Yes, so he's gone back to the eyewitnesses. Thank you. We will come back to that as well. That's the second point. So you're absolutely right. That's the second point. What does he say though about his research, his method? He goes back to the beginning. He's careful. What else are we seeing? Yes, he does. He's investigated everything. Notice a little phrase there. He says, verse 3, with this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning. The beginning there is actually, I think, the beginning of Jesus' birth, so when Jesus was born. Okay? So what's his historical method? His method is that he himself carefully investigates everything. Righto, this begs a question, doesn't it? What's the obvious question? Could he actually do this? This is, can you throw the first slide up, please, Zach? So this is me just going, I'm asking myself the question, could what Luke said be true? Right? So this is what historians do. Historians don't just trust what people say. They go, okay, well, let's try and work out, is what Luke said possibly true? I'm going to give you 3 reasons why Luke's research and this claim could actually be true. So the top one up there, Luke actually travelled extensively with Paul. So you've got some of Paul's journeys up here, and Luke did 2 of the journeys and the trip to Rome. So you see the one that went through the ocean all the way up to Rome. There's a few shipwrecks there in the way. And so he travelled extensively with Paul, and when he travelled extensively with Paul all around these areas where Christian churches were, and particularly people who'd met Jesus, and after they'd met Jesus, all these people got scattered all around the kind of known world up there at the time. And so all these people got scattered after they saw Jesus. Luke travelled to all these places with Paul, and he was meeting people who had met Jesus in all of those places. He also went to Jerusalem, where he would have met the Christian leaders of the Jerusalem church, so James and Peter and others. He also would have had access to Paul's accounts of what happened, okay, as well as documents. One of the documents that Paul has access to is a letter to Governor Felix that Luke uses in Acts chapter 23. Just there, and he has access to another letter in Acts 15. So these are all historical things, right? They're all historical things that make you go, did Luke have access to all of the data that he needed to make this claim? Right, so all that stuff there. Therefore, this is my little conclusion, Luke has opportunity to meet many of the eyewitnesses, also gaining access to important documents, right? You see what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to go, Luke's claimed this, could it be true? All right, second one, Luke meets up with Mark in Rome. So in 2 Timothy, Paul's in Rome, and he says, hey, only Luke's with me, get Mark and bring him to me. Guess who Mark is? Mark's the guy who wrote the Gospel of Mark, and Mark had access to a lot of Peter's material, right? So here is Luke doing all of this travelling. Then Mark turns up in Rome as well, and Luke also hangs out in Rome at the end of Paul's life, and lots of people came to visit Paul in Rome, right? Could Luke himself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning? Okay, we'll be historians for a moment, right? The answer is yes, okay? Perhaps Luke was the most informed, in some ways, he's the one who collated more data than anybody else. Okay, let's flick off that. What have we got next? Okay, so I guess what I'm just wanting us to go to think about is Luke's a researcher. Luke is much more, one of the things I just want to say at this point is a lot of people think Christianity is mythology. You'll hear that a lot in the university. I sat in one class once and the lecturer talked about the Christian myth. The lecturer has no idea. He's never read Luke chapter 1, verses 1 to 4. He was just speaking from ignorance. Okay? The Bible is not myth. Myth does not do that sort of stuff. Okay? The Bible's not myth, it's not story, it's not opinion. Okay? The Bible is closer to a PhD than it is to new idea. Right? The Bible, still a research component. The Bible is much more like a show on TV you'll never watch called Four Corners on the ABC. Everyone know what show that is? We all know the show. Does anybody really ever watch that? No. It's a show that's going to be dead in 20 years, isn't it? Okay? The Gospel of Luke is more like Four Corners, investigative journalism, than it is like a current affair. Okay? You see the difference? What have we got here in the Gospel of Luke? It's a researched and reliable document about the person of Jesus. And Luke has opportunity to have access to all the information he needs. Okay, the next point is the second one there. Sorry, I'm just going to check the time, see how we're going. Luke's reliance on eyewitnesses. Okay, so Luke's reliance on eyewitnesses. We notice that there in verse 2. Just as these accounts were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses. Now, how important are eyewitnesses? Can you flip this one up? Oh, no. I'll skip that. We will do that. No, let's skip all this. What I wanted to say with this is, you know how you've got to do research? Can you get on the next one? No, sorry, go back. Go back, off shelves.
There's nothing in the middle.
There we go, that'll do. What I wanted to show with this slide is Peter Fitzsimmons, who wrote about Gallipoli, right? So when he wrote about Gallipoli, he did all this research. If you want to go and read his book, and again, this is a book you're probably not going to ever look at for a while. He's got 64 pages of notes, footnotes and endnotes and things. 64 pages. And he has 21 pages of bibliography. Okay, is that close to a PhD? No? You've got more pages of bibliography, do you? No. Okay, so this guy has done all this research. It's actually research that verifies whether someone's done a good job historically, because research takes you back to the eyewitnesses. Okay, and that's very much what the Gospel of Luke is. Okay, let's just go forward. What was the next one I had? Okay, what's the value of eyewitnesses? If you're in, so this is a quote from one of the documents that the US Department of Justice put together for their police force their police forces across the nation. And what they said was, we've got a problem. And the problem they had was with how they treated eyewitnesses. Because the most important person when it comes to a crime is the person who saw it. It's not the person who that person then told the story to. That's not the person. It's not the person who thought they saw something or the person who heard about it. It's actually the person who was there. And so the US Department of Justice wrote out and said, look, the eyewitness evidence is often the critical piece of investigating of the puzzle. You've got to get it right. And so they wrote this huge document to help their police to handle eyewitnesses well, so that they could get the right information and the true information. Eyewitnesses are the people you want to meet historically. Anyone doing history? Okay, no, okay. If you don't go back, if you write a history essay and you do not go back to the historical source, you will fail. Got it? You've got to go back to the original source. You can't skip over that. Eyewitnesses are the critical piece. The US Department of Justice know that, and also does Luke. Can we go to the next one? So the question we've got is, instead of going and working out what his eyewitnesses are, I'm just going to ask the question, how reliable are Luke's eyewitnesses? Okay. So the first one up there is, this is a quote from Luke chapter 3, verse 1. I'll read it to you because it's got lots of big names in it. But in the fifth, so here's chapter 3, verse 1 in Luke. He's the researcher, right? Luke the researcher. Ready for this? In the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, when Pontius Pilate was governor of Judea, Herod tetrarch of Galilee, his brother Philip tetrarch of Iturea and Trachonitis, and Lysanias tetrarch of Abilene, during the high priesthood of Annas and Caiaphas, the word of God came to John. Okay? You're glad I didn't get you to read that? First thing you've got to notice is all the people. Here are all these people listed. They're all different types of rulers. You've got Caesar, you've got Caesar's deputy out in Palestine, Pontius Pilate. Then you've got the Jewish ruler, Herod, and you've got Herod's brothers, and then you've got Caiaphas and Annas. Okay? And all the historians gave berserk on this. We know these dates, okay, from other things. And when you line all the dates up, you actually see that there is a window that is correct. All these dates line up. Historians go, wow, we don't have a mismatch here. This actually works. This guy knew his political history, right? Maybe he was there. That's what they think. Okay, tell me the mistake. What's the mistake in verse 2? There's actually an error in verse 2, a factual error. Anyone spot it?
The high priest.
Yeah. How many high priests? Yeah. How many high priests are there? There's only ever one high priest. Okay, so we actually have a factual error in verse 2. And you know what historians do? They go, oh my goodness, the Bible's probably not reliable. But what we've since discovered is Annas and Caiaphas, one was the father-in-law and one was the son-in-law. And actually, the father-in-law controlled the son-in-law. And so when the locals talked about the high priesthood, they talked about the high priesthood of Annas and Caiaphas. It's factually incorrect, but it's actually correct. Does that make sense? And historians go, this guy was aware of the political stuff that was going on. This person was there. They knew it. He's a researcher. His eyewitnesses are reliable. You can read that one at your own leisure. Basically, it's another thing where people thought Luke made a mistake. Let's flip on. Luke's reliance on eyewitness testimony. Certainty comes from two things so far. Certainty comes from Luke being a researcher. He's carefully done his work. Certainty about Jesus in Luke's gospel comes from eyewitness accounts. And eyewitness accounts are really important. And the last one I've got there is certainty comes from fulfillment. Have a look in verse 1. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that are being fulfilled among us. It's a really interesting word. If we were to write that now, we would probably write, many have undertaken to draw up an account of things that have happened, wouldn't we? That's what we'd write, I think. But Luke says, no, the things that have been fulfilled. What gives Luke certainty about Jesus? That Jesus is the one who God sent? It's that he fulfills many of the Old Testament expectations. Zach, can you throw the next one up? No, keep going. We're going to flip past that. That's just saying there's lots of other eyewitness testimony is really important in the rest of the New Testament. Okay, how do you recognise the President of the United States of America? Okay, he was just here for the G20 recently. Let's assume, instead of going to that, measly institution called UQ, he came and did a lecture at Griffith, Gold Coast, right? Let's imagine he did that. How would you recognise that the President was on campus? Yeah, exactly. Like the 200 Secret Service agents just travel with him. He's got his own aeroplane. He has a motor cavalcade with 45 vehicles. This is the car he travels in. Apparently he's got 20, you could bomb this thing and he'd still survive. He's got a helicopter plus decoys, right? That's how you know the president is around, because they don't just fly one helicopter in, they fly 3 in, just so you just don't know which one he's going to get off. He can close CBDs. My brother works in the hotel industry. When the president comes, you know what they do to hotels? the Secret Service agents turn up 6 to 12 months earlier and they go, you know what? We're going to knock a door in there. And they kind of say, we're going to reshape your hotel. And if you say no to that, he goes to a different hotel, right? That's power, isn't it? Not only that, Family Feud got cancelled when the president, we had to watch him on TV. Anyway, I tried to watch Family Feud that day and had to watch the president of the United States flying out of Brisbane. Come on. Anyway, so how do you know the president of the United States is around? There's all these signs, okay? Let's hop off that one now. Luke's saying the same thing about Jesus. That's why there's this emphasis on fulfillment. Jesus had to fulfill a whole number of things so that we would know that he was the one that God was sending. So he had to be the family line of David. He had to live in Nazareth, even though he was born in Bethlehem, right? So that's a bit like saying a New Zealander would live on the Gold Coast. Actually, forget that. That's too common. It's like saying a West Australian living on the Gold Coast, wouldn't it? Any West Australians here? You know what? I have not had a West Australian put their hand up yet when I've asked that question. You know, he had to take a childhood trip to Egypt. So born in Bethlehem, lives up in Nazareth, take a childhood trip to Egypt, get betrayed, die absolutely humiliated. But you know what's really strange? He had to die humiliated like a criminal. But get this, one of the prophecies in the Old Testament said he had to be buried with the rich. How does a common criminal get buried with the rich? See, Jesus fulfilled all these things. And this is why Luke says we can have certainty that Jesus is the one that God was sending to do something special. Why can we have certainty about Jesus? Because Luke is a researcher. Why can we have certainty about Jesus? Luke says to Theophilus, because I've gone back to eyewitness testimony. Why can we have certainty about Jesus from Luke's gospel? Because Jesus fulfills the Old Testament. And Luke, if you've read Luke 1-4, it's like reading Old Testament. It's actually quite hard to read because you feel like you haven't stepped out of the Old Testament, because Luke keeps taking you back again and again and again to show you how Jesus meets those expectations. One of the great things about university is one of those times where what we do at uni, you're not just getting a degree, right? What the university aims to do is to educate you from first principles. They want you to understand the world from first principles. And what's really good about that is so what Simao is doing Simao is doing what the university is designed to do. PhDs are meant to break new areas of knowledge. Is that right? Yep, so a bit of a nod. And that's what a PhD is meant to do. You can't just do a PhD and write a report on something that we already know. You will fail. In a PhD, you've got to break a new area of knowledge. That is the task of the university. You go back to first principles. When you're doing a dentistry degree, or they're going to make you learn the anatomy of the whole body. Do you think a dentist needs to know how the ankle works? No. Okay? But they're going to make you learn all of that so that when somebody walks in, sometimes there's cancers that people get, that something appears in the mouth and it comes from some other part in the body. And so if you know the whole body, you can solve things from first principles. Okay, so the university is going to make, if you're doing engineering, you have to learn all these forces. You could just plug numbers into a computer, couldn't you, these days? But the university is going to make engineers learn all these forces so they can design new stuff, and you do it all from first principles. Okay, so that's what the university does. I love uni. I think it's fantastic. One of the things I want to say to you, invite us all to do, is, and this is what we do each week in main meeting, is we try to work out who Jesus is from first principles. What are the first principles? It's when we go back to the Bible and see what people who saw him actually wrote. And that's what we do each week. This is a little thing we're using this year. It's called Uncover. It's fantastic. All it is Luke's gospel on one side and a place to write notes on the other. And it's kind of really nifty and neat. Nobody really even, it's too nice. People don't even realise it's a Bible. It's kind of a bit too nice for that. So here it is. And what we do is we're just saying to everyone, anyone who wants to do a little bit of thinking about Jesus, whether you've been Christian a long time or whether you're just trying to work it out yourself, no matter where you are on that spectrum, can I just say, if you're a bit interested, someone may well say to you, hey, I want to read Uncover with someone, one of the regulars. Would you like to do that with me? Okay? Someone might ask you to do that tonight, next week, whatever. Can I say, if you're a little bit interested, why don't you just go, hey, that'd be great, and work out a time to do that. And the bonus of it is you'll get to meet someone else in the group. You'll do a bit of first principle work, thinking about what someone who did the research and saw Jesus actually had to say about him. And it's a wonderful thing to do. It's a wonderful first principle thing to do while you're in an institution that tries to educate us from first principles. Go back to the Bible to work out what it has to say about Jesus. I'm going to pray, and then Brendan's going to fill us in on what we do from here. So, our Father in heaven, we thank you for Luke. We thank you for the things that he wrote. We thank you that he did